I think we got to start off with all the executive orders, specifically when it comes to tariffs. What was your view of what we heard and what we didn't hear when it came to the executive orders and the fact that the president talked about an external revenue service but didn't actually mention China?
Look, I agree with Mark largely that the president wants to drive to a big deal on China, and he sees tariffs as a very effective negotiating tool of many that he uses in his arsenal, and I think he'll use them again, like he did the first administration, to drive towards and discipline countries that that we have where we have a trade imbalance.
Hey, Chris, this is Mark. I think that in the first administration, Steve Mnuchin, your secretary, and you guys were really successful at continuing to advance trade, even though the president, I think, had very targeted rhetoric toward China. Do you see it the same way the second go-around, or do you think that President Trump's looking to have a more protectionist policy globally?
Mark, as you know, that the president likes a deal. He's never seen a big deal he's not wanting to conquer, and so I think that he wants a big deal on China. I think that I think it's a good early indication as to see how the administration postures on TikTok. I think that he's going to again very effectively use every tool in the arsenal to drive a big deal that would keep Americans safe, but keep Americans have access to TikTok, which is going to be certainly very tough negotiations in Beijing, but I think he ultimately will drive toward an outcome. He's going to use the tariffs like we did in the first administration to help discipline and drive these big deals.
So, Chris, I want to talk to you about something else that was noticeably absent in the inauguration speech. Any direct discussion about taxes and tax policy? What did you make of that? I'm sure you're very familiar with some members of the economic team. What do you think is going on behind the scenes when it comes to that tax policy?
Look, it's no secret that the president's 2017 tax bill, the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, also known as the Trump tax cuts of 2017, many are set to expire at the end of this year. And there is, with the unified Republican Congress, the president is going to drive toward a very large economic bill package that will make permanent many of those tax cuts, and also drive toward answering and delivering the promises he made in the campaign, which is no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security benefits, and many others that I think that will ultimately be included in that one large package, which will be done by reconciliation. Which just means that only Republicans are necessary to be able to pass the bill. But I do expect to see that package addressed early in the administration, and is crucial to the overall president's economic message and economic policy.
Chris, I want to play a soundbite for you, if you don't mind. It's the president talking about how he plans to address inflation. Again, I want to get your take on what he had to say and just the reality of what he had to say.
I will direct all members of my cabinet to marshal the vast powers at their disposal to defeat what was record inflation and rapidly bring down costs and prices.
So, Chris, your take. He says he's going to get the cabinet to work on bringing down prices, tackling inflation. You're someone that worked in the administration, so it seems like an edict from him that he's very passionate about. But how realistic is it when we come down to the different agency levels?
It's if you bring down regulations, if you look overall at the economy, as kind of holistically at the economy, which I think he tends to try to do, it's taxes, it's regulations, it's ability to be able to deliver cheap energy to American businesses, to unleash innovation in our country, and have with that economic growth. True economic growth, not government spending, but true economic growth in the private sector, you can see inflation come down. I think so. That's certainly what he's going to do. And I think that by suggesting that across the board, every member of his cabinet look to try to tackle inflation, there again, there's across the board. It's a reduction of government spending, driving smarter policies and smarter spending policies from Washington, and also making it easier for small businesses and businesses around the country to be able to hire new people.
But Chris, I do have to ask you, some of the policies related to inflation and tariffs, immigration and tariffs, are seen by many economists as being inflationary. So do you genuinely believe that at the cabinet level, the agency level, you can offset the potential of inflation from those other policies?
So if you look at, again, if you have to look at the president's economic policies holistically, and so if you look at the tax policy with reductions in tax burdens across the board for Americans, not just on the wealthy, but for everyday Americans as well, see across the board tax cuts. You couple that with perhaps some increase in tariffs. Which I think will be temporary, but in order to drive larger deals with Mexico, Canada, China, and many others. I think that's it'll be largely mirrored what we saw in the first administration, which again. President Trump doesn't get much credit for this, but there wasn't enormous inflationary spikes during his administration, although he did use tariffs to be able to to get USMCA and other issues addressed.